I still remember the exact second the room went quiet. Music playing, laughter floating, glasses clinking. Then that sentence landed like a slap. My sister smiled as she said it, like it was a favor, not an insult. My daughter froze, holding a half-empty plate, eyes searching for mine. And in that moment, I realized this birthday party wasn't about cake or candles. It was about power, pride, and how far a mother would go to protect her child. It was meant to be a joyful afternoon. My sister's house looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Balloons and soft pastels, long tables dressed in linen, hired staff moving quietly like shadows. It was a birthday, and she wanted everything perfect. I brought my daughter, Mia, along. She was 12, polite, warm-hearted, and still believed family meant safety. She wore a favorite dress, brushed her hair twice, and reminded herself to say thank you to everyone, because that's how I raised her. What I didn't know was that, to my sister, kindness looked a lot like weakness. The moment didn't arrive with shouting or drama. It arrived quietly, disguised as a joke, wrapped in a smile that everyone else seemed to accept without question. My sister stood near the center of the room, a glass raised lightly between her fingers, her laughter flowing easily as if the whole party existed only to orbit her. The house was filled with people dressed beautifully, the kind of guests who compliment decor before they greet you, the kind who notice brands, labels, and silent hierarchies without ever naming them. Soft music played in the background, and the hired staff moved smoothly from table to table, collecting plates, refilling drinks, careful not to interrupt the illusion of effortless luxury. Mia had just finished a slice of cake. She was sitting quietly, swinging her feet slightly under the tray, watching everything with the open curiosity of a child who still believes adults always mean well. She had thanked the waiter when he handed her a napkin. She always did that. I noticed it because it made me proud in the quiet way mothers feel proud, the way that doesn't need an audience. Then my sister's eyes found her. It was subtle at first. A pause, a narrowing of focus. Her smile didn't fade, but it sharpened, as though she had just spotted an opportunity. She tilted her head, laughed lightly, and gestured toward Mia with a glass. "Oh, darling," she said, her voice bright and playful, loud enough to cut through the room. "If you're finished eating, you can help the servants clean up. It'll be good experience for you." For half a second, no one reacted. The words floated there, unreal, waiting to be understood. Then I felt it, the shift. Conversation slowed. A fork paused halfway to someone's mouth. A couple of guests exchanged quick looks, the kind that say, asterisk, did she really just say that? Asterisk without daring to challenge it. Mia froze. Her hands tightened around her plate. She looked at my sister, then at the staff moving nearby, then back at me. Her face changed in a way that only a parent notices. Not anger, not tears, but confusion mixed with shame. The kind of expression that asks a question without words. The kind that says, asterisk, what did I do wrong? Asterisk. My chest tightened so hard it felt difficult to breathe. This wasn't about cleaning. This wasn't about teaching responsibility or kindness. If it were, my sister would have asked quietly. She would have included herself. She would have said, asterisk, help us, asterisk. Not asterisk, help the servant star. But this was different. This was about drawing a line, about reminding everyone in that room who had money, who had status, and who, in her mind, did not. I watched Mia slowly stand up, unsure of what she was expected to do. She glanced at one of the staff members, then back at her empty plate, as if trying to work out where she belonged in the situation. No 12-year-old should have to question their worth at a birthday party. What hurt most wasn't just a comment. It was the casualness of it, the ease with which my sister used that word, the way she smiled afterward, expecting approval, expecting laughter, expecting silence. And for a moment, that silence came. I felt anger rise, hot and sharp, but beneath it was something heavier, recognition. I had seen this behavior before. I grew up with it. The subtle digs, the comparisons, the unspoken belief that success gave you permission to look down on others. I had learned long ago to swallow it, to avoid conflict, to tell myself it wasn't worth the fight. But this time, it wasn't about me. I looked at my daughter again. Her shoulders were slightly hunched now, like she was trying to make herself smaller without realizing it. That single sentence had already begun to teach her a lesson, that some people get to decide your place in the world just by speaking. And I knew, with absolute clarity, that if I stayed quiet, that lesson would stay with her far longer than the memory of the party. The room still hadn't fully resumed its noise. People were pretending nothing had happened, but the tension lingered, thin and sharp like glass. My sister took another sip of her drink, satisfied, already turning her attention elsewhere. But the damage had been done. In that moment, I understood that humiliation doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles, laughs, and calls itself harmless. And sometimes it chooses a child because a child is least likely to fight back. I felt my hands curl into fists at my sides. My heart pounded, not just with anger, but with resolve. I wasn't sure yet what I was going to say, or how loudly I would say it. But I knew one thing with certainty, that sentence would not be the last word my daughter heard that day. Not if I had anything to do with it. Mia didn't cry. That was the part that hurt the most. Taze would have been easier to understand, easier to comfort. Instead, she stood there silently, holding a plate like it suddenly weighed too much for her small hands. Her eyes darted around the room, not looking for sympathy, not looking for rescue, just try to understand what had changed so quickly. One moment she was a guest, a child enjoying cake and music. The next, she was something else entirely, something smaller, something less defined. She walked toward me slowly, each step careful, like she was afraid of making the wrong move. When she reached my side, she didn't look up straight away. She stared at the floor, at the polished tiles reflecting the lights above, and then she whispered, so softly I almost missed it, "Mom, am I supposed to do that?" There it was, the question no child should ever have to ask. I crouched down in front of her, lowering myself so we were eye to eye. Up close, I could see the change in her expression more clearly now. Her cheeks were flushed, not with embarrassment alone, but with that deep, quiet hurt that comes from being singled out. Her lips were pressed together, holding back words she didn't know how to form. She wasn't angry. She wasn't defiant. She was trying to be good, trying to do the right thing, trying not to cause trouble. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked next, her voice trembling just slightly. That was when something inside me cracked. I had spent years teaching her to be kind, to be respectful, to help when she could. I had told her that no work was beneath anyone, that dignity came from effort and honesty, not from money. But what my sister had done twisted those lessons into something ugly. She hadn't asked Mia to help out of kindness. She had assigned her a role, one based on perceived status, and in doing so, she made Mia question her own worth. I wrapped my hands around MIA's shoulders, feeling how tense she was. She leaned into me instinctively, like she used to when she was younger, when the world felt too big and confusing. For a second, I wish I could take her away from that room entirely, shield her from every moment where people would try to tell her who she was allowed to be. But shielding isn't the same as teaching. Around us, the party continued in fragments. Laughter rose and fell in forced bursts. Glasses clinked. Someone turned the music up a little too loudly, as if sound alone could smooth over what had happened. No one came over to check on Mia. No one challenged my sister. Silence, once again, did its quiet work. I thought about the staff my sister had referred to so casually. I thought about how they moved through the room with professionalism and grace, doing their jobs with care, probably used to being invisible. I wondered how often they heard comments like that, and had no choice but to swallow them. And I wondered what lesson Mia was absorbing in this moment, not just about herself, but about how the world treats people it labels as less than. "Mia," I said gently, brushing a strand of hair away from her face, "you didn't do anything wrong. Not one thing." She looked up then, searching my eyes, trying to see if I meant it. Children always know when you're pretending. I held her gaze, steady and sure, hoping she could feel the truth of it. But Auntie said, she began, then stopped, unsure if she was allowed to finish the sentence. "I know what she said," I replied quietly. "And it wasn't fair. You're a guest here. You're my daughter. You don't belong to anyone's idea of what you should be." She swallowed hard. I could see the moment she decided whether to believe me or not. That decision, whether to trust her own worth or the words spoken over her, would shape more than just this afternoon. I could feel eyes on us now. Subtle glances. People noticing the pause, the tension, the fact that something was happening that couldn't be fixed with another drink or a louder laugh. My sister stood across the room, watching us with a tight smile, her posture stiff. She looked annoyed, not apologetic, as if MIA's confusion was an inconvenience. That realization stung almost as much as the original comment. I hugged Mia properly then, pulling her into me, letting her feel my heartbeat. I wanted her to remember this part, the part where she wasn't alone, where someone stood between her and the world when it tried to make her feel small. "I don't want to help if it means I'm in trouble," she whispered. "You're not in trouble," I said firmly, "and you don't have to do anything that makes you feel bad about yourself." She nodded, slowly, like she was committing those words to memory. In that moment, I understood something with painful clarity. Children don't just learn from what we say. They learn from what we allow, from what we tolerate, from whether we speak up when it's uncomfortable or stay quiet to keep the peace. And as I held my daughter there, surrounded by polite smiles and expensive decorations, I realized that this wasn't just a moment of pain. It was a moment of learning. The world had tested her, and now it was testing me. I could either teach her that love means silence in the face of humiliation, or I could teach her that her dignity was worth defending, even when it made people uncomfortable. As I stood up, keeping one arm protectively around her shoulders, I knew this was only the beginning. The hardest part wasn't what my sister had said. The hardest part was deciding what I would say next, and what that would teach my daughter about her place in the world. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The room was already listening, even if it pretended not to be. When I stood up, there was a shift so slight most people wouldn't have noticed it, but I felt it immediately. It was the same feeling you get just before a storm breaks, that charged stillness, that sense that something unavoidable is about to happen. Mia stood close to me, her fingers curled into the side of my dress. I could feel how tense she was, how every muscle in her small body seemed ready either to flee or to disappear. I placed my hand gently over hers, not to pull her away, but to anchor her, to let her know that whatever happened next, she wouldn't face it alone. My sister noticed me standing. Her eyes flicked toward me briefly, then away again, as if dismissing the possibility that I would actually say something that, more than anything else, fueled the resolve rising inside me. She expected silence. She expected compliance. She expected that old family rule. Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass anyone. Don't challenge her. I took a breath. "Actually," I said, my voice calm but clear, cutting cleanly through the background music, "my daughter won't be doing that." The words weren't dramatic. They weren't rehearsed. They were simple, and that simplicity seemed to confuse her. My sister turned fully toward me now, her brows knitting together slightly. "What?" she said, laughing a little, like she thought I was joking. "I was just saying she could help. There's nothing wrong with that." Around us, the room had gone noticeably quieter. People pretended to sip drinks, pretended to adjust their seats, but no one was truly distracted. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. "There is something wrong with it," I replied evenly. "She's a guest here, and she's a child." The smile slipped from my sister's face, just for a moment. It was quick, but I saw it. That flash of irritation, that flicker of being challenged in front of an audience. She straightened her shoulders, lifting her chin slightly, a posture I recognized all too well. "I don't see why you're making this such a big deal," she said. "It's good for kids to learn how things work. It builds character." I felt anger surge, but I held it back. This wasn't about winning an argument. It was about drawing a line so clear that my daughter would never forget where I stood. "Helping builds character," I said. "Being singled out doesn't." A few heads turned. Someone cleared their throat. The tension in the room thickened, heavy and uncomfortable. I could feel MIA's grip tighten on my hand, but she didn't pull away. That mattered more than anything else. My sister scoffed softly. "You're overreacting," she said. "I didn't mean anything by it." That sentence, "I didn't mean anything by it," was the oldest excuse in the book. The kind people use when they don't want to take responsibility for the impact of their words. I looked at her then, really looked at her, and realized something that felt both sad and freeing. Intent didn't erase harm. "I know you didn't mean to hurt her," I said, "but you did, and that's why I'm saying something." There it was. The truth laid bare, without insult, without cruelty. Just fact. For a moment, my sister looked genuinely stunned. She wasn't used to being spoken to like this, especially not by me, especially not in front of others. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again, as if she couldn't quite find the words to regain control of the situation. One of the guests shifted uncomfortably in their seat. Another looked at Mia, then at me, and gave a small nod. It wasn't loud support, but it was support all the same. And I felt something inside me settle, a quiet certainty that I was doing the right thing, no matter how awkward it became. A staff member passed by just then, collecting empty glasses. My sister gestured toward them impatiently, trying to reassert her authority. "See? That's literally their job," she said. "I don't know why you're acting like I insulted her." I turned slightly, making sure Mia could hear me clearly. "And they're doing their job with dignity," I said, "just like anyone else. That doesn't mean my daughter needs to be used as an example." Silence followed. Real silence this time. Not the polite kind, but the kind that forces people to confront what's being said. Mia shifted beside me. She looked up at my face, her eyes wide, uncertain, but something else was there too now. Relief. Maybe even pride. I squeezed her hand gently, and she squeezed back. My sister crossed her arms, her voice colder now. "So what? You're saying I'm some sort of villain for throwing my own party?" "No," I replied. "I'm saying this party doesn't get to cost my daughter her self-respect." That was the moment the power truly shifted. She had expected emotion, shouting, tears, accusations. What she got instead was calm certainty. And there's something deeply unsettling about being challenged by someone who refuses to lose their composure. She looked around the room, clearly aware of the audience now. A few guests avoided her gaze. One woman gave me a sympathetic smile. The illusion of effortless perfection she'd worked so hard to maintain had cracked, just slightly, but enough to let the truth show through. "I think you're being dramatic," my sister muttered. "Maybe," I said quietly. "But my daughter will remember who stood up for her, and that matters more to me than how this looks." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. I turned slightly, positioning myself fully between my sister and my daughter, not aggressively, but protectively. A clear, physical statement of where I stood. The music slowly resumed. Conversations restarted in hushed tones. The party carried on, but something fundamental had changed. Mia leaned closer to me and whispered, "Thank you." That one word erased every doubt I had. In that moment, I knew that even if the rest of the afternoon was uncomfortable, even if relationships were strained, even if I was labeled difficult or dramatic or rude, it would be worth it, because my daughter had just learned that her voice mattered. And maybe more importantly, she had learned that when hers felt too small, mine would rise to meet it. Sometimes the most important moments don't end with applause or apologies. They end quietly, with a child feeling seen, protected, and valued. That day, I didn't change my sister. I didn't fix the family. But I showed my daughter that her worth is never up for debate. And that lesson will last far longer than any birthday party ever could.